Our next guest on the show, Warren Seitz. Kansas Shrine Bowl announced their Hall of Fame class of 2026, and Warren is a part of that class, and which will be honored May 6th during a ceremony in Lawrence, and once again at the actual Shrine Bowl that'll take place June 27th in Emporia. Quick bio background on Warren before we get started. Just a few of the details. We'll get into more of these, but Warren, who played at Topeka West High School, was selected to the Kansas Shrine Bowl in 1981. Then went on to play football in college at Missouri, and then spent a couple of years in the NFL after getting drafted, and then got back into coaching as he moved back to the Midwest. Just a couple of your stops. We'll leave out some, but with Topeka West at your alma mater for 15 years, and Nemaha Central as well for 10 years. So first of all, Warren, appreciate you coming on the show, and congratulations on being inducted.
Thanks. It's good to be here, and it's an honor to go into the Hall of Fame with the Shrine Bowl. I've really enjoyed my experiences throughout my long career with them.
Well, for you, I mean, I feel like I bring on, other coaches that are still actively coaching, and I'll ask them kind of the silly question every once in a while, especially coaches that have accomplished a lot already. Like, have you had time to reflect? And they'll be like, well, no. And I get the same answer. Like, I'm actively pursuing more achievements, right? So like, they don't have time to reflect. I'll ask this to you now, especially with this latest induction. Like, have you been able to kind of reflect on your career, whether it was a player or as a coach?
I really have. I've been retired for about a year and a half now, almost 2 years in May. And so I have reflected back, and, there's a lot of great times that I miss. But I had an awesome experience both playing at high school level, the collegiate level, in the NFL, and then the coaching career. God really blessed me. I've had a heck of a career in both areas.
Well, getting to the Shrine Bowl in 1981, like, what was that experience like? Because, nowadays, people kind of have a good feel, but in 1981, what was it like being selected to the Shrine Bowl?
In 1981, it was a time when there was a game, we played it. We really didn't overthink things too much. And so it was an honor because I'd been hurt my senior year, some of the year. I knew I was going to the University of Missouri to play football, but I decided to play, and we had camp in Ottawa, Kansas, like they do now, the East. And Lou Lane, at that point in time, Manhattan was still in the east side of the state. Lou Lane was the head coach, and so I remember going to Ottawa, and it was 2 weeks long. So there's a little bit of differences, same game, but a little bit of differences. And we also traveled to St. Louis, to the hospital itself, and met some of the kids and stuff like that. So that was some differences. I always like, my best story is that I knew it was an all-star game, obviously, and everybody else did, but Lou Lane was really a stickler and a tough coach. And he made us do bear crawls and stuff like that, which is, I'll always remember that, just being miserable doing that stuff. And thinking, here I am at an all-star game, and I'm doing bear crawls.
He put you to work. Do you remember any of your teammates or some of the other players that were selected that Shrine Bowl?
Briefly, and the names as we went along, some of them went to K-State, some of them went to KU, but Harvey Fields, and there were some other guys. Arc City, they had some guys down there. But, overall, it was a long time ago. And, do I keep up with any of those guys anymore? No, I do not, because we kind of went our separate ways during college and then after.
Playing at Topeka West, what was that experience like for you, just your high school career, especially in football?
Well, I played for Frank Walton, who was a longtime coach at Topeka West, and we ran split back veer. And, I did track and I did basketball also. So, we worked at it. Summertime came, it wasn't as much basketball back then. It was, get ready and do the weights and do the workouts and get ready for football. But I had a good experience there. Like I'd said, I'd been hurt a couple times in high school football. Went to some college camps in the summer that really boosted my recruitment, to tell you the truth. But I do still see some of the high school guys and stuff like that, and a lot of the relationships unfortunately come through Facebook and things like that, social media. Sure. At this point. But it was pretty typical of a high school career, to tell you the truth.
Getting recruited to Missouri, like what went into your selection process in choosing the Tigers?
Well, I was recruited from a number of schools and took a trip out to UCLA just because I don't think at that point in time I'd ever been on a plane, and I wanted to go see what LA was like. And so I had a good time out there. But a lot of it was based on schools that I could play at right away, what I thought would be right away. My parents also grew up in Missouri. My dad had worked in Goodyear and Kansas City, and then before we moved to Topeka. But, Nebraska, which had Turner Gill, was a year ahead of me. Frank Sauer was 1 year ahead of me at KU. And then at Darrell Ray Dickey was ahead of me at K-State. And all three of those guys, those were the other schools I was really looking at, Oklahoma State a little bit. But those guys were just a year ahead of me. And so I thought that coming to Missouri, they had Phil Bradley, which was about ready to graduate, and thought I'd have a good opportunity. Plus, it was 3 hours from Topeka. And so my parents could see the games and just really enjoyed my experiences. And like the coaches, a guy named Jim Donnan, who eventually was the head coach at Marshall and won a national championship. Georgia was the head coach. He recruited me actually from K-State, and during my senior year, got the job at Missouri. So initially, my recruitment for K-State was with him, but then when he went to Missouri, then he recruited me to Missouri also. So that was kind of unique.
Your experience at Missouri, and you had a great career there. I think 3-year letter win. For you, at what point did you realize the NFL was a possibility? Like, was that something that you saw early on, or at what point?
Yeah, I really never thought about that until my senior year, because throughout my career it was like most guys' career, a little bit up and down, and some with injuries and some with starting and some with backing up and having to come in and play. And so I really I kind of took it a day at a time, a year at a time at that point in time. So the NFL really didn't come into play until later on my senior year. I got an invite to the combine, and I played in the Senior Bowl after my senior year. And so that's when it really kind of hit me that I might have a chance, even though, with social media and stuff back then, I didn't know what the competition was and everybody else as much. But I was big for a quarterback, and I moved to receiver a little bit when I wasn't playing quarterback in my senior year. So I was pretty versatile, and we ran the option, but size and speed were two things, and the NFL looks for that.
Was it tough for you, trying to transition from position to position, whether you're playing quarterback or wide receiver or tight end, like you mentioned? Was it tough trying to, sort through all those positions, whether it's at Missouri or when you got to the NFL?
It really was. Being a jack of all trades kind of helps you in instances, and sometimes it hurts you. Because in the NFL, you can't play multiple positions. Most people can't. And so, I'd played quarterback and wide receiver in college. And then when I was drafted, they moved me to tight end. Well, I'd never blocked before. And so, I remember after Steelers practices having to block a guy named Mike Merriweather. They just had me over there just continuing to work on my block. And he was like an all-pro. It is just like, I try to lock up with him and he'd throw me off real quick. I try to lock up with him, he'd throw me off. So it was definitely a challenge. They brought me in as a running back. And then when I knew that I wasn't really a running back, then moved me to tight end. And I made the team as a tight end. The next year they brought me back and moved me out to wide receiver. But they had John Stallworth and Lewis Lips and stuff like that, and knew it was going to be a tough go. So Even the coach said, okay, you might be a heck of a coach someday because you know how to play all of these positions, but, really none of them good enough to play in the NFL for an extended period of time.
Warren Seitz joining us here, part of the 2026 Hall of Fame class through the Kansas Shrine Bowl. That'll be honored May 6th in Lawrence and again at the Shrine Bowl on June 27th. All right, so I was reading online a story, and you can confirm or deny this one, that said like you didn't almost miss your first preseason game, but you had a hard time getting to the stadium for your first preseason game for Pittsburgh. Is this true?
It is true, and actually we were over at some friend's house at a Super Bowl party last night, and we were talking about this very story because I'd bought a Trans Am down close to Ottawa, Kansas, with my money that I'd gotten from a bonus for signing, which at that point in time wasn't a whole lot, but I didn't know a whole lot of money, so I spent it on the Trans Am. And we were at camp in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and there were actually two buses that the players were taking. You didn't have to take the bus. You could meet them in Pittsburgh. Well, I didn't know where Pittsburgh was, and there was no things as GPSs or anything like that. Well, we decided to just follow the buses, and so my wife and I, and so only one bus was filled, and I did not know that at the time. So the first bus, at some point, the first bus headed to Pittsburgh, but we were behind the second bus, so we followed it. Well, it was going opposite of where Pittsburgh was, so we ended up about an hour or so, almost further than we were at Latrobe to Pittsburgh. And so at some point in time, we stopped and said, "Where's Pittsburgh at?" And they told us where it was and where Three River Stadium was at that point in time. And so I'm glad I was in a Trans Am because I went about 80 or 90 miles an hour knowing I was going to be late. I was thinking, okay, this is it. I'm going to be cut. How much am I going to have to pay? $5,000, $10,000, whatever. And fortunately for me, I was a rookie. And, as we had a pregame meeting or meal. And so after the pregame meal, the guys were coming back into the locker room. And they were coming from one direction, and I kind of came in from the other direction, the front door. And like I say, fortunately, being a rookie, they never even missed me at that meal. And so nobody ever knew. Went on, and we played. It was in 1986, and we were playing the Bears, actually, who had won the Super Bowl the year before. Yeah. And it was a heck of a night. I couldn't believe I was there. They had me at running back. I got a touchdown pass thrown to me, but I didn't know that I blew the assignment. A backer had blitzed, and I was then kind of became the hot read. And so ran a little angle route and scored a touchdown and made some tackles on special teams and had been a player of the game. So it was quite the night for me because later on that same night, my Trans Am was stolen. So, obviously a night I'll never forget, but yeah, I was late to my first preseason game, but in the end, it all worked out.
Yeah, I'll say it worked out really well. I know it's hard to, package your entire coaching career, but at the same time, like, what was that transition like, and just how much did you enjoy coaching, whether it's, your stops in Missouri or Topeka West or Nemaha Central? How much reward did you get from coaching?
I love coaching. Just being around a team and being involved with the assistant coaches. And I had a brother-in-law that got me started into coaching. I didn't really know. I went back to Topeka after I graduated from Mizzou and not knowing what really I wanted to do. And so I was assistant at Highland Park High School 1 year, and then I was an assistant for Frank Walton at Topeka West before I got the head coach at Topeka West. And so love the X's and O's. Like I said, just being around the guys, so I had a 15-year career at Topeka West and a lot of ups and downs. We went to the state championship in 2002, which obviously was a highlight. I had a nephew play for me on that team. And then, it was about 2007. I also was a coach at the Kansas Coyotes briefly for a couple of years in Topeka there, the indoor arena team, which I thoroughly enjoyed because those were college guys, and getting to coach those guys and being around them and just how hard they worked just from being a college player was quite the treat. After Topeka West, I came to Missouri and did baseball for about 3 years because I was also the Topeka West baseball coach for about 10 or 12 years, and then went back to Nemaha Central. I got my master's in athletic administration and decided that I wanted to try to be an athletic administrator, AD, and a head football coach still. We'd had a player that had an injury at Topeka West towards the end of my career that was life-changing. And so when I came to Missouri, I wasn't for sure that football was still in my blood. And, I still had the will that I wanted to coach and stuff like that. But a friend told me that Nemaha Central was open and that the AD had retired, and at the same time they were looking for another coach. And so it was actually Nemaha Valley at that time in Seneca, Kansas. Yeah. And so I went up there and interviewed, really enjoyed the principal and the superintendent, and everybody seemed to be on the same page as they wanted to do something big. And so I was all in. I said I want to do both of them, and they allowed me to do both of them. Eventually, then, we consolidated with Baileyville, which was about 5 minutes away. And Baileyville had some good 8-man teams. And so their guys came over, and it was a great experience. Seneca's a great town. They wanted to win at football. They had good basketball teams. And so, we put it together, and a lot of people were involved in that. But we had some great teams and won the state in 19. And, it obviously continues because Nemaha Central is a good team, and went back to one advantage of being retired is we had a grandson who was a junior and then this past year a senior at Nemaha Central. So got to go back to those games and watch him play, and it was really a treat.
Yeah, start of a dynasty with that state championship in 2019. Now won 3 of the last 4. Hey, Warren, appreciate the time. Congratulations again.
Hey, no problem, Cole. Thanks for having me.
That is Warren Seitz, part of the 2026 Hall of Fame class through the Kansas Shrine Bowl.